All right, continuing discussion on building the next web. I'm talking with Nathan Huening today. Nathan, quick intro. Who are you?
Uh, Chief Rouser of Rabble at Webflow. It's a position. No, I'm just kidding. Longtime web developer, done agency work. Currently a solutions engineer at Webflow. So I work on the enterprise sales team as a technical advisor.
Awesome. And I'm excited to be able to talk with you today. You know, you and I have known each other for many years. And I think one of the questions that's out there is, you know, how are people building? What is next? And there's a whole bunch of hot takes that have been posted on Twitter and Reddit and like LinkedIn and all these different places. And I thought what would be cool is to be able to sit down with you today and talk about what you see. And then, you know, a few weeks ago, I was able to sit down with Julian, who's been exploring other ways to build and has been creating Ship Studio and, you know, all these really cool, new and interesting ways to approach the web and kind of get your take on some stuff. And then, you know, kind of maybe in a few weeks, what I'd love to be able to do is get all of us together on a live. And so have the chance today to go through and get your perspective. And then in a few weeks, we'll go through and get everyone's perspective. So just real quick, like, let me back up and just ask you, what are you excited about in terms of, you know, the web today, just broadly?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I think, the Vlad, the founder of Webflow, was on stage at a company event back in February, and he contextualized, I thought, some of what we're seeing now with like code generation, from LLMs in this lineage of Webflow. And the way he described it was, he said, 10, 12 years ago when we founded Webflow, the only way to make websites was manually. You had to, code it by hand. And so there was an opportunity there. And Webflow was one of the, pioneers in kind of visual no code to, I would say two things. One is to help people who had no coding background do make websites, but then also people who already were doing code by hand like me, you're now 10x more productive, right? So both of these two kinds of things. And his vision for what he said on stage for the kind of major shifts happening now was, with this code gen where this gatekeeping function of I could only make something if I have all of this specialized technical expertise has dropped almost to zero.
Uh-huh.
And so he's like, if 10 years ago it was about becoming 10x more productive, now you can become 100x more productive.
Hmm.
And so, you see this, it's the same idea of people want to make things, but it's hard with code, and Webflow and others made it easier. And now it's easiest, perhaps. Like I can just natural language prompt
Yep.
something. And to give you an example, like this thing I'm most excited about is what kinds of websites or web apps would we see if the layperson could make anything she wanted. And so just for me personally, I've obviously used Webflow a long time. I'm a competent front end developer, but like never learned React, not like a web app developer, these kinds of things, So here I am in Lovable and I'm working on my fourth app, and I've got all these ideas from 15 years ago. They're like, I'd
Yeah.
love to work. Maybe I'll save up some money and hire a developer, whatever. And like I'm staying up till 4 in the morning, just like making my dreams come true. And I can tell you some of the things I'm doing, but you and I have talked about how, like, what if, and I love the phrasing that, I want you to speak more on this, where it's like, if like a web app, the cost of creating it drops to zero and anyone can do it, then an app becomes something like a spreadsheet. Like
Yeah.
it's like a one-off thing you just do for a meeting or, and then you just
Yeah.
discard it, move on. That doesn't need to be like, what do I need for this to become 100 million users and to harden it against
Yeah.
attacks? And and the thing is that when you're creating software, and by software, I mean, really it could be like desktop software because you can about code anything. I know the web, that's my thing. But like when you're making a website or a web app, you can just make it for yourself, scratch your
Yeah.
own itch. Like I
Yeah.
said, I have these 3 that I'm making. Maybe 10 people in the world end up using it, or you read these reports of like this mom who like made an app with like scheduling for her like breastfeeding group of like 15 other
Mm,
moms, and that's it, or like, just whatever kind of thing. So the idea that like all of this potentiality could now be unlocked in a real way
mm,
is what gets me really excited, because I'm working on my own ideas. I know other people who are
mm.
working. I'm sure you've got a million, and I'd love to hear about them.
Yeah.
So to me, that was always the promise of no code. Was
Mm,
like Vlad was saying, developer superpowers for everyone, but it's still hard, right? Like you use
yeah.
Webflow, you still got to learn Flexbox, you still got to learn, So for good or for ill, we've now abstracted all of it away, such that you don't have to know the first thing about anything. And
Mm,
again, that's good and bad. But if you're just making it for yourself, like who cares if it's properly optimized and scores a 100 on Lighthouse for performance? It just doesn't matter, right?
yeah.
So anyway, that's what I would say is most exciting for me right now.
Amazing. Well, and I know that yeah, you've got no shortage of ideas. Every time I talk with you or turn around, you're like, oh yeah, well I just built, because you also you've built a tiny home community and you've got like a whole farm and you've got, I mean, you're like, yeah, you have a day job and then Webflow is sort of like what you do on the side. I'm partially
Yeah,
kidding, but like,
yeah. Webflow
but
is the side hustle to pay the bills so that I can pursue, right?
so you can pursue
My-
your tiny home dreams.
right, right.
And yeah, I think that if I was to talk a bit more around, what you're describing, I've been thinking about it as ephemeral software and this idea that just as you said, like it's something you can build and use and throw away, or maybe you keep it around for a few years, just like you would, like any other spreadsheet or whatever. And I think the biggest difference that we're seeing today in technology is that for a long, and for SaaS in general, like everyone, by the way, everyone wants to say like something is dead. And I posted on,
Pass is next, right?
yeah,
Yeah,
I posted on Twitter or whatever a few weeks ago that meme from Portlandia, which is like shell art is over, like the guy Sludge or whatever his name is, and he's like just goes around, he's like shell art is over. And there was this thing like SaaS is over, and I think that's farthest from the truth. I think that the business model is changing, and I think the thing that's really changing within software today is that for a long time, as a company, you would have to adopt a piece of software and wrap your company around it. And
Mm.
now it's the opposite, where you can go and adopt a piece of software and wrap that software around you, like for whatever you want it to be. And so it is about having something that is like more composable, but still malleable and approachable. That's the difference. Because it's one thing to have, there's all these like really complicated systems. Like I came to Webflow from AEM because I was like, oh my gosh, like, yes, you can quote unquote do anything in AEM, just like I can do anything I want with like Notepad, right?
Right,
but
right.
that's not the same as
Here's a
having,
pencil and paper. You can draw anything. I said,
yeah,
"Oh."
like, well, thanks so much. Um, but I want to dig into what you've been building. But before I do that, I want to maybe talk about some of these burning questions that are out there. And something you had kind of hit on was like, hey, you can go in and it's like the cost to building something has almost gone to zero. Do you need a CMS?
Yeah. Well, maybe not.
Yeah.
What is a CMS? First of all, I think we should answer that question.
Okay.
What job are you hiring it to do? Is the second question. And third, whenever there's technological advances, improvements, it's rare that they're um, like, I don't know the word, like that you replace something with something else. They're almost always additive. So
Huh.
it's not like SaaS is dead or CMS is. It's just like, no, this is not going anywhere. Like, streaming services. There's no more TV. Well, no, there's a lot of great TV right now. I mean,
Yeah,
it's just like
tons of
the
great
internet
shows.
came along. No more books. It's like, no, there's lots of books still. So these things just stack on top of each other. They become additive, and so it then just becomes a question of, well, how do we shift? How do we reassess this? So CMSs aren't going away. I think we need to understand what they're for. Um, I mean, I don't know how useful a discussion that is, but like a lot of what we're doing internally now at Webflow is like deconstructing a lot of the stuff. Rather than just proceed forward as we always have, it's like, well, why does it matter that we post a blog article or,
Hmm.
and so we can talk about SEO and AEO and all these things, but like fundamentally your goal for a lot of CMSs, and this maybe comes back to the question of like what job you're hiring this technology to do, is I need a way for people to publish content online, like
Yeah.
white papers, press releases, job postings, thought leadership articles. And, we joke in the enterprise sales space that there's only two websites on the internet, Mason. You know this, right? There's
No, I don't.
B2B and there's B2C. That's it. There's only two. I want your email or I want your credit card number.
Huh.
So it's either I want you to buy the t-shirt, so I'm B2C, or I want to capture your email so that you
Mm,
become a qualified lead, and then you become an opportunity, and your email is just a proxy. Whether I write a white paper and you have to exchange it for an
mm,
email, ultimately the only two websites that exist at the commercial level is B2C, B2B. I want your email, I want your credit card.
mm.
So we can talk, about the rest of the web, like the non-commercial web. But from a commercial standpoint, it's just those two things. Like
Yeah.
every deal I've ever sold at Webflow is one of those two. And so the idea is like, well, what are you trying to sell? Why does it matter? How are you positioning yourself? What's the story you're
Mm,
telling? What technology are you using to support this? Because like all of our enterprise customers, it's not just the CMS.
mm,
Like if you're saying what's the role of the CMS, honestly, that's just like one little piece of the puzzle. Like, yeah, I want you to buy Webflow,
mm.
but like when an enterprise customer that's using a different kind of stack wants to move to Webflow, it's like we're pulling out the CMS, Sitecore or Adobe or WordPress or whatever, and like dropping in Webflow. But if you think of the wholeness of their marketing technology stack, they're using Salesforce and HubSpot and proprietary DBs and analytics tool. I mean, Segment and Clarity, and so it's like there's this list of like 30, 40 different technologies that are like operating
Mm.
at any given time, of which Webflow is just like this one little piece. So yeah, like
Yeah.
your CMS is important, but you're not changing any of these other things.
Mm.
So really, the effectiveness of your business is I wouldn't say it's less about how quickly can you publish content, because that's obviously important, but like
Sure.
how are we thinking about the business of your business?
Yeah.
And so a lot of that's why in enterprise sales that you have real humans talking with other real humans, because like understanding that, digging through that, like questioning some of the assumptions that they have. They've been working like this. And I'm like looking at these five different, I said, you need all five of these tools? Like
Mm,
I have these other customers, they just have these two that replaces all this. It's cheaper. And it's like, oh, we never would have thought of that.
mm.
So like when we're making that transition to Webflow, it's a chance as like a consultant to kind of reevaluate these things. But anyway, all that said, really long-winded way of saying, do we really need CMSs? Um, maybe not. But again, that's just like one piece of this much larger go-to-market motion that these
Mm.
customers have. So we need to contextualize it appropriately, I think, in terms of like the role of the CMS. Um, and can talk about, yeah, well, which one should you pick?
Sure.
And do you need these kinds
Yeah.
of things? But ultimately, we need to understand your business. And I
Yeah.
think that's sort of what you've been getting at this whole time is like how does a business change? How do we adapt? Because to your point, and I'd like you to speak to this,
Mm.
the enterprise Webflow agencies that I know of are slammed. Like
Uh-huh.
just they have more work than they can handle right now.
Mm.
So it's like, what does it mean that like at this one level of retail studio or self-serve freelance or whatever, maybe is struggling, and I see this anecdotally a lot, but
Yep.
then like at another level, it's like, man, we gotta hire 10 more people kind of thing. So it's just these are some of the things we need to unpack.
Yeah. And I think that, um, so, and that is a very real trend that I have seen, and I've been trying to go and have open conversations with people from like Jesse from FinSuite and Stu from Off Brand, and a lot of different people, and even for us as well. Like we are seeing an increasingly like growing demand for our services. Now, the thing that I would say is that probably the biggest difference is that our focus has never been just about the build, right?
Mm.
It's like, how do we go through and solve this larger business challenge to
Bingo.
drive better outcomes for a customer? And I think that if someone just needs a website, and there's a lot of people that just need to be able to have something, up on the web. And in those cases, if it's kind of like a one and done, like you're just going to go in and create something, and for example, like I I have this proclivity and a love for very small sailboats called Marshall sailboats, and they are made in New England. That's like a multi-generational family. They just need to have something so that people know, like, hey, who they are and what they're doing, but they don't have like a big content. There's no marketing team. It's just Jeff
Right.
Marshall. You
Right.
know, like he is it. He's third generation. Um, and for those, I would say that, maybe Webflow is not the best solution anymore. And I'm that, just like it's not,
100%.
it doesn't have to be the everything. And in that case, and I think for a really long tail of cases that you can kind of move to a different business model. And so what I want to say, what I've seen on this flip side is that there can be a different business model where it's managed services. So what that means is like, hey, you go through, you have a very tight process. You have a deliverable that potentially works as just static HTML files, or maybe it's sitting on top of some other headless option or whatever that might be. And then there you actually work as like someone needs to be able to make an update. By the way, like Jeff doesn't have a team. He was never going to have a team. He was never going to have someone that he could go and like, oh, well, let me go and like learn about anything about the web, right? Like, this guy's got a flip phone, like literally, like he flips it up and you
He's
have,
not in the business of making websites.
yeah,
Yeah.
like,
Right.
and I mean, he's in the business of like just making these incredible boats. Also, if you haven't gone to Marshall Marine, check them out. Uh, the cat boat is beautiful. It's 18 feet. Also, you can buy them on Craigslist for not a whole lot of money used. That's where I
What
got
website?
mine.
What do they use for CMS, or is it just static HTML? No. Is there anything?
I've never done the built with,
Okay.
but
For
yeah,
any
but
listeners that are, you should go
yeah,
right now. Yeah.
well, but anyway, that's all a long way of saying that I think there is a totally different business model out there for builders. So like you don't have to just go and like learn, oh, now I've got to go and be like a growth marketer and understand AEO and SEO, and all those are good fundamentals. But I think
Yeah.
there is also a new opportunity to say, hey, I can be a managed service provider, help you solve this very specific problem, and have a long tail of customers on retainer that you're doing this for, and it could be a couple $100 a month. And I think that is
Uh,
that is a tried and true model. It is something that's mostly been built on WordPress up until now, and I think there are new opportunities where that can be on a whole very wide array of stacks and AI configurations. So that is kind of what I see there is sort of the difference of um, how to be able to build and then how to be able to build for outcomes, which is really what enterprise has been focused on.
yeah. And enterprise is a chunky mouthful of a word.
Okay. Yep.
It describes so many things and doesn't describe so many things at the same
Yep.
time. What the way I would frame what you're describing, and I hear this a lot from Webflow partners, practitioners. So like obviously there's a lot of agencies like you, multiple people, but then a lot of just solo folks that work and they all use Webflow in different ways. But to your example of Marshall Marine, there's a category of website that is not. I'm going to go on a little bit of not a rant, but like it's not revenue generating in
Mhm.
the sense that like you use it for your business to make money. And the classic example we give is like a restaurant, right? So here
Yep.
in rural North Carolina, there's a pub down the street called the Eddy. Um, what do you need from a restaurant website? I need the menu. PDF is fine.
Yeah.
I'm looking at my phone. I need the phone number to call to make a reservation. I need your hours. Maybe that's. And here's the thing: if that website goes down, it just doesn't matter.
Sure.
I can find your phone number on Yelp. I
Yep.
can find it in Google Maps. Like, it's just like it's just not essential to the business. And there's lots of websites like this, like law firms. I just need my practice areas, maybe a paragraph on my different partners, hours.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. So it's like if that website goes down, that law firm's not getting their business from Google. Maybe
Yeah.
like a little bit. It's referral. It's like word of mouth. It's former repeat business, whatever. So So there's this whole category of like brochure website, which you identified with Marshall Maureen, and
Yeah.
and people have been using Webflow for that for a really long time. Like where oh, you hire me, I make it for you. Webflow's not great. If you're Jeff Marshall, you're not going to learn Webflow. Like you're
Yeah.
going to use Wix, you're going to use Squarespace, and justifiably so. Like we've seeded that market for a number of reasons. One is because it's, I mean, you can buy a restaurant template from the Webflow marketplace. It's fine.
Right.
You can have a devil of a time trying to like update it and maintain it or whatever. I have a lot of thoughts about our approach to templates, but the point is that like it's hard for you as a practitioner or me as a developer to like charge a lot for this because it just doesn't matter that much.
Yep.
So maybe I charge like $500 or $1,000, whatever it is, and it's one and done, and let's move on. Now I'm like constantly on the wheel of like I got to find more of these customers because to your point, I don't have like recurring income in the sense of like retainer agreements. And in my agency life, I struggled for a long. It was real feast and famine.
Yeah.
I'd get like
Yeah.
50 grand, and then 3-4 months pass, and I'm like, okay, I paid everybody. I know I got this money coming over the course of the year. I can hit all my, but the rent doesn't care if you're going to
Yeah.
get paid in 3 months or whatever.
Yeah.
So you need to figure out how to do it sustainably, and it's really tricky. You know that more than most. But the point I'm trying to say is that there's this brochure website, which is a lot of businesses, and there's this one on top where it's like, no, the website really matters to the business,
Huh.
and that's what we maybe call enterprise, or like internally we call them like professional websites or commercial websites, or the language is a little fussy, but the point is that like if you're Orange Theory Fitness, which is a Webflow enterprise customer,
Yeah.
it's a gym. They do a lot of specialized data work, measuring your heart rate and things like this. And the people who I know love it. They do it all the time for events. They love it, right?
Yeah.
Dedicated fan base. It's like it really matters that the website is up, right? Because it's like if I go and I want to sign up for a class and I go and have a good experience and I become a recurring customer, that's like a lifetime acquisition thing. And I need to know like where's the nearest gym, and and like the coaches are publishing like their custom, from franchise to franchise, their different workouts and stuff. And Orange Theory, the company, wants other franchisees to come and purchase it so they can open new locations. I mean, if that goes down for like a couple of hours, it's bad news bears, right?
Yeah.
And the difference there is that you've got not just one, like Jeff updating the web, like 1-2 people,
Yeah.
you've got like 40 people on the Orange Theory side, and then like another 15
Huh.
on the agency partner side. And so it's like, how do you make this very complex software product? And that's a good example of like, it's not just like a static page. Again, if I were to draw the martech diagram for Orange Theory, it is enormously complex. There's dozens of third-party databases,
Yeah.
proprietary internal stuff. Like when you go and sign up online with your email address and name, that has to be routed to some front office worker with an iPad so that when you walk in, they can check you. I mean, it's all has to be tied in. And so that's where it's like, yeah, you can write code, but
Hmm.
like, it doesn't matter. Like you have to solve
Yeah.
business problems. Maybe you can do a little faster, but like that's not the core thing that you're solving. And so
Yeah.
why we're seeing, I think precisely because this code gen, this like generative code capability that we're seeing now, it's really dangerous because now it's like people who had limited ability to mess things up can
Yeah.
now mess crazy amounts of things up. So like the
Yeah.
guardrails are more important, the expertise is more important, the consultative, is more important. So again, this is where like our enterprise customers are moving up to these category of websites,
Hmm.
and they don't have to be. It doesn't have to be Pepsi Cola. Like it doesn't have to be
Yeah.
like huge
Oh.
international conglomerates. It's just, is the website core to the business? Like if it goes down for an hour, would it matter?
Uh-huh.
And just answer that question. And can you make a living doing the brochure website? Sure. I don't know that Webflow is even really the best. Maybe it is. Like you could use it, but like up here, what at the enterprise level on the Webflow side internally, like what options you have are really limited, and they're mostly terrible. So for all of the ways that if I could wave a magic wand and improve Webflow, and I have a list as long as my arm of the things that drive me nuts, like if it's Webflow versus Adobe Experience Manager, or Webflow versus Sitecore, or Webflow even versus WordPress, it's so many orders of magnitude better than the other kinds of enterprise options that our customers come from. And again, whatever qualms you have about Webflow, the software, the ways that it drives you nuts, we don't have a lot of churn. Like when you come from Contentful to Webflow, or you come from Adobe or something, when that year contract or 2-year contract is up, you pretty much you sign again. Like you came from that world
Yeah.
and you had a good experience. So our churn rate is pretty low, and I think that speaks to the quality of the people servicing the account, first of all, at the enterprise level, but also like, yeah, it is a lot better than the options. It's not perfect. There's plenty of ways that it's
Yeah.
needs to be improved and stuff. But that's the thing is like, if you're working in this level and you move up to that kind of thing, then yeah, you're gonna have more work than you can handle. But making that shift, and you made a point earlier that I want you to speak to, where it's like going out on your own, like as a freelancer, first of all, where you're like trying to learn web development, but also trying to learn how to run a business at the same time.
Yep.
That's two very hard things. And
Yeah.
so your advice, I think, which I want you to speak to, is like, how can we get good at servicing accounts
Uh-huh.
without having to like overwhelm ourselves or set ourselves up for failure? What would you say?
Well, I want to just first recognize how difficult it is to live through a technology change like we are today. Bit of background, I started my career building the internet in 97, and I went all in on Flash. And I was a Flash developer for about 11, 12 years
Which is longer
until
than people watching this have even been like making websites or using Webflow.
sure.
So yeah, goes
Yeah,
way
and
back.
I will say, and it was amazing. It was an amazing time. There was an incredible community. There was this way to be able to bring in like animation and design and like all these different things. And then all of a sudden, mobile came around, and then it was like, well, does your website do this? And Flash didn't. And within 2 years, Flash totally went away.
Wow.
It was over. It was also bought by Adobe, and I think they killed it. I think Macromedia would have done a much better job, but that is also one of the reasons why I'm on a tear where I love to migrate people off of Adobe. And if you work at Adobe, I'm sorry, I have no personal feelings against you. I just really don't like your company. But living through that was incredibly difficult. And I think the jump for me was I was able to use that skill. So first off, I freelanced full time and made zero money for about 3 years. And it was so incredibly difficult. I was lucky enough to be able to answer a job posting from Craigslist and get a job at Razorfish, which I'd never heard about, but actually turned out to be a really large and global company. But I was able to do that with this like really unique skill set. And then at that point, I used that experience to actually learn the business. And so one of the things that I did, and this is just a hack for anyone that's out there, is like be able to have a skill that is sort of like in demand within these different echelons of companies or whatever. It doesn't have to be a global. It can be just like any, let's say 50 person and above agency. And whenever an RFP came in, I would be like, hey, I will format it, because the strategists, they would work on it and they would create these horrible PDFs and Keynote or PowerPoints. Like it was all in PowerPoint. And so I was like, I've formatted PowerPoints for years, but it gave me a chance to learn the process of the business. And so, fast forward another 9 years and I was fired from my last agency, and I was like, oh, well, if I just hit a tenth of the sales target that I was responsible for, I think I'll be okay. And that
Individually.
was 14 years ago. So I have just an immense amount of empathy for anyone that is going through this currently. I will also say that even in the heyday of sort of the no code, whatever within Webflow, let's say like no code conf, way back in 2019, one of the things that's always been really hard is there just haven't been enough jobs. And so what I'm hoping for is that there are more opportunities so that if you want to go freelance, you can, but that you can also go and work with an established agency and be able to learn from, someone like, Joe over at FinSuite or Stuart over at, Offbrand, or myself or whoever, and be like, oh, wow, that's how they respond to an RFP. This is how they organize. This is what project management looks like. Here is the type of cash you need to have to float, like, all these types of things. And these are the business, sort of acumen pieces that I feel like help people understand how to work beyond tools and think about, the deliverable in ways that are different. So I would just throw that out there as like a sign of hope that there are opportunities, they are different. And, this new way of working, it will be uncomfortable. Like, it took us, I mean, from 2010, really until 2000, I went 5 years where I felt like I didn't have a home, and in fact, for Edgar Allan, we didn't have a website for 2 years. When we launched, it was just like word of
Yeah.
mouth and people knew me and, you know,
Yeah. Right.
and it was actually like we built our first site for Edgar Allan on Webflow. So, when I go in on a tool, like I really go all in. But let me ask this, like, so speaking from that Flash experience, and one of these hot questions that's out there is Webflow dead? Is Webflow dying?
Well, in the strictest like Sylvia Plath sense of the word, we're all dying, right?
Yep, that's true. Like,
But
I
no,
love that. I love that you quoted Sylvia Plath here. There is a quote from her, the Ghost Leviathan, who is like, it's one of my favorites from her. So, but yeah, we're all gonna die, right? So let's start there.
right, yeah. So don't just don't worry about it. It's I think there's two things happening. I think what Webflow is it's a company, it's the people at the company, and it's the software itself, right? Like it's all three. And at any given time, one of those is going to be stronger than another, right? Like as there's turnover in the company, you get different kinds of talent, and and then the software, you have like a peak where things are going really well, and you fall behind because new
Yep.
technologies, and so everything's always evolving, everything's always changing all the time, and so the question becomes, how do we respond to the moment? Like, what does it look like? What does the future look like? And I will say that I think that the specific way of building websites, just call it like manually, right? That those days may be numbered. So some of the ways that Webflow as a technology, as a capability, enable you to serve some business problem, some of those opportunities might be going away. But ultimately, like we need to get words and pictures on a screen. Like that's
Mhm.
all. That's all. This is
That's
this
what
is
it
if
is.
we're making it really really simple in my like reptile brain is just you have some reason to put certain words and certain pictures on certain screens at certain times to certain people, right? So how do we solve that problem? And so like on the one hand, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, these core web primitives, these fundamentals, Webflow doesn't own and control these. It's always ever been just a way to manipulate these core web fundamentals. That's why with Webflow, at any time you can just click and export your entire site and go host it somewhere else. It's fine. Like
Yeah.
take your ball and go home. Like Framer, you can't do that. It's just like so it's not like locking you in any particular. You want all of your 10,000 blog posts, export it as a CSV and go import it to WordPress. It's fine, right? Like so the idea that it's like you're just manipulating these core things 10 years from now, we're still going to have HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So
Yep.
so the tools that let people A, manipulate them, and B, learn them, like Webflow, a lot of people came to Webflow thinking like, oh, I can make websites without knowing code. And after a little bit, you're like, oh geez, I learned Flexbox without realizing it, or now I know what margins and padding is or whatever. So Webflow's success partly has just been about helping people to become web experts in
Mhm.
in tools and technologies that are not related to Webflow, right? Like, but that said, I think that some aspects of our product is kind of getting long in the tooth. I think like every tool, like every technology, you make some decisions 10 years ago and you're always paying off, tech debt. And so I think there's some opportunities here to revisit the core problem that Webflow solves using like modern tooling, modern technology. So
Yep.
so the idea is like if we could like start from scratch and like make a Webflow using modern toolkits, that recognized and adopted some of these practices in terms of like using vibe code, using agents, and our name is now agentic web marketing. So like, what does that mean in practice? And you're going to see some things. This later this year at Conf, we're going to make some announcements showing some of the investments that we're making in terms of helping builders and practitioners really be successful, like in the Webflow way.
Mm.
So if you think the Webflow is just going to be still and static, and just like we're going to keep
Yeah.
selling the same thing for the next 10 years, like, well, obviously that's not going to happen. So when you say Webflow is like the current tool as it is, maybe, but that's sort of the whole thing. Is that like what we've learned, and this sort of I think pivots the conversation a little bit, and a lot of Webflow experts will reach out to me privately, just being like, are we going to be like building websites anymore, or we're all in on the marketing? Because it's like now we got like the optimization and the AEO and
Mm.
all this stuff, and it's like we're getting left behind because I'm not a marketer, I'm a
Yeah.
designer builder. But the thing is, to your point, is that it doesn't have to be mutually exclusive. And
Yep.
and the way that I think about it is that like Webflow created opportunity for people to make a living building websites. And that's that. And to me, again, the people who use Webflow to make websites for other people, that's our core customer. When
Yep.
I sign an enterprise contract for Orange Theory, that's just downstream of the partner. Like when I
Yep.
sign, Edgar Allan, you are the customer
Yep.
because my mouth is writing checks that Mason has to cash. When
Exactly.
I'm
You're
selling
like
Webflow.
sparkly hands, sparkly hands. Like
Yeah, right.
it
Like
does all
I
these
it's like, well,
things. And
I sure hope all these promises I'm making, Mason's team can fulfill, right? But the reason why this matters is, and this shift from like this brochure site to this pro site is that pro site not only is more valuable to the business, but it can create a long-term opportunity. It'll create something like you said, long tail or like recurring revenue for our customers. And you don't have to be a
yep.
huge enterprise agency, but here's the thing: if you, like me, spent years, like I made a website and I shipped it and I'm done and I have to find another one to make. And it's
Yep.
just like you're on this hamster wheel of just continually finding this. But it's like I spent like a year making a relationship with this customer and now I have nothing left to offer them. And like I know them
Yep.
really well, I know their business. And it's like I got to start all over again. The idea that like, what if you could continue that relationship? Like,
Mm.
what if Webflow offered you tools and opportunities. And so, for example, this idea that when we acquired Intellimize and we now have the testing and personalization,
Yep.
like there's a lot of Webflow agencies who either had them on staff already or staffed up new people who are like,
Yep.
yes, now that we've launched the website and we made all these assumptions about the headline and the button color and the user journey to get,
Yep.
again, only two websites. I want your email, I want your phone number,
Yep.
or I want your credit card. Like we need to test these assumptions. And so, testing and personalization, like delivering different variants to different populations, have enormous impacts on conversion, which is really, really valuable. Like sometimes
Yep.
I'm working with a customer, Mason, or a prospect, and they're going to increase their digital ad spend to $10 million over 3 years. And so the idea that it's like companies are thinking about, we're spending on all this, they're doing billboards, they're doing radio spots,
Yep.
like the whole thing, right? And it's like, and then they like get these people, they spend all this money to get people to a website. And then what? You just serve them the
Yep.
same one page when you could be personalizing it because of tenths of a percent, hundreds of a percent improvement in conversion with their
Mm.
average deal size, Mason, is like, I can make you $3 million more per year if I can give you 1/100th of a percent improvement in your conversion rate. So
Yeah.
these are the conversations I'm having with customers. Just like,
Yep.
hey, Webflow Enterprise is only going to cost you 150 a year. Mason's going to charge you 200 to build it. So here's $350,000, and you're going to make $3 million. Like, who doesn't take that deal?
Yep.
So the idea that like this relationship of like marketing, where again, once you make that restaurant website or Jeff Marshall's Marshall Marine, like
Marshall Marine. Yeah.
there's nothing more to do.
Yep.
But there's all these websites where there's still like testing and personalization, SEO, optimization from an AEO perspective, from a
Yep.
performance perspective. Like as you're adding new content, new tools, things slow down. Like SEO, accessibility, AEO, performance. These are not exams that you pass; they're gardens that you weed. And so somebody
Mm.
has to every week be like doing this. And again, the company that you're working with, they're not in the business of this stuff. They're in the business of
Mm.
making the widget, or they're in the business of
Yep.
selling gym memberships. Like they need somebody who can manage this on their behalf and knows what they're
Mm.
doing. And that you can make a lot of money doing this like after launch. And so
Mm.
this shift to like uh web marketing instead of like web building, I don't think it's like either or. I think it's like, no,
Mm.
let's provide you the best tooling possible to make the site using, again, core web primitive HTML, CSS.
Yep.
Let's let you use agents either baked into Webflow or bring your own, whether through the MCP or whether we're able to integrate it, more directly into the tool. Let's give you the best possible building experience. But once it's launched, then what?
Yeah.
Are
Yeah.
you, I want you now to also have a business opportunity as a partner.
Hmm.
And that's what we call the marketing. Cause like you
Yeah.
spend 3 to 6 months launching the site and then you use it for the next 10 years. Well,
Yeah.
why wouldn't you want to capture, dollars from that relationship and that, the code base really well, all
Yeah.
these things. So like, I think that when you see Webflow like pivot to like web marketing, it's not like we're leaving building behind. It's like what we've recognized is that if you want to make the money for us in selling enterprise software, and the money for you as the agency is not in the restaurant website, it's in this other
Mm.
piece here. So that's again coming back to
Mm.
our enterprise agencies are
Sure.
just have so much work to do. It's because it's like and that's a hard shift to make. And you would be better, and others that are in
Yep.
the space right now as practitioners, as agencies, would be better able to kind of describe the process of starting here and getting here way better than
Yep.
but I think it's like, how can we use Webflow and or AI and or agents? My concern is, and this is something that we're seeing, there's this Reddit post that you sent to me that we circulated internally of this team that like, we left Webflow, we went to Astro and Vercel, and then, we came back to Webflow, and then Julian's, partner at MemberStack was like, we switched, we vibe coded off of Webflow and now I regret it. And, so I think there's like an opportunity here still for Webflow to evolve its tooling to capture these people who are like, I want the capabilities and the freedom and the speed and things that this like new workflow offers. But a lot of times that people move off of it, they're like, there's still some things that I miss from Webflow. And so I think there's a middle ground there.
Yep.
And that's where Webflow's headed, is like,
Mm.
can we still build on the foundation of everything that we do really well, but then capture this interest in these new workflows to create something new and novel? And I don't think really anybody's doing this well yet.
Mm.
I think this is the market opportunity for Webflow in the next 5 years. And if we get it right, like thread that needle, I think we have, as a company, potential to be bigger than we've ever been, because
Mm.
it's gonna be like the total addressable market's gonna be even that much.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, first off, I want to, because just so that everyone knows, you and I did not rehearse any questions ahead of time. I did not send you any questions to get approved by anyone in corporate. And in fact, like, I haven't coordinated with anyone in PR or comms or anything
I'm
at
probably gonna get in
Webflow.
trouble from the marketing team, right?
Well, I don't think so. I think that what you're really doing today is helping, because here's the deal: is I adopted Webflow not because the platform looked awesome. I adopted it because there was a video that I saw from Sergi, and I was just like, I like Sergi.
Hmm.
It's always been a relationship business. And I have this privilege of, I've, grown up alongside of so many great people. I know the people that are building it and that are really building this really great platform. And I feel like there's a lot of times where Webflow doesn't get the credit that it needs. Also, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of times where it just drives me crazy, right? But I think what I'm trying to get in and dig into today is be able to surface a few different things. And really within this whole series is, what does it mean to build the next web? And then who are the practitioners that are on the ground and seeing the true realities? And just as you talked about, like, there are great ways to build all sorts of stuff, whether it be ephemeral software or one-off brochure sites or big corporate sort of marketing initiatives. And now there are so many new tools that are helping to do this. I think Webflow is a big part of that. And so again, I just wanted to thank you for your candor to be able to talk about that in a way that you're seeing it. So just to be able to throw that out there in disclosure and whatever.
So speaking of, do we? I know in the promotional material, or the post for this, you said these are some of the things we covered. We got to give the people what they want, right? Is there anything that we said that we would talk about that we haven't? Is there any questions from are
I
people
don't know.
watching this live, or is it just
Yeah, I have to go back and look at the post. I will be honest. I have, so you may notice that I'm doing a lot more of these. My role has shifted. And so my whole role is like, how can I be out front and having conversations like this? I didn't write the post. So I don't remember what was on there. And this is the third one that I've had this week. I'm not having any next week because I'm going to go and take my son and we're going to go out on our Marshall cat and go sailing
Nice.
hopping around in Maine.
Back to Maine.
Yep, still up here. So
Oh God! Oh, nice, nice, nice. Yeah, yeah.
I'm living my
Very
best
Maine
hobo.
cabin vibe behind you. This
Yeah,
background, right?
yeah. It's kind of a closet, but I'm living my best hobo life, and then also trying to find time to get on the internet and talk with people. But I think maybe one of the other questions I wanted, and I think we've got about 15 minutes. I will jump over here. Hold on. I'm going to actually join our live stream on LinkedIn and see if we have any questions. And so, it says the event will start soon. Wait for the host to start. That's so frustrating with LinkedIn. So I guess what we'll do, if you're probably maybe seeing this on who knows where, but I'll share clips and this will be on YouTube. Now I've got to find you. Here we go. You're back. But what as like, you're talking with a bunch of people. One of the other threads that's out there is this idea of zero click, or that you won't need a website. So what is the reality that you see as it relates to someone never even visiting your website to, give you their credit card or email address?
That's a really good question. Two things strike me. One is the AEO play, or like that's been really a big part of Webflow's learning in the last year, is like how when we talk to people, it's like our organic traffic is falling off a cliff, right? Like people aren't coming to our website anymore, and it should come as no surprise that it's like if I'm just chatting with Claude or whatever, and like I'm getting answers that are scraped from or cited or referenced from your site, it's like maybe I'm not visiting your website. Or like Gemini and Google results at the top or whatever. And so there's a lot of anxiety about like, well, what is the role of a website now? Like, are people still coming? I know I've talked to some people like, Michael Wells, who's a Webflow developer, very technical, extremely talented developer. He's just like, yeah, I see a world where it was just no websites at all. And what's interesting is, we're going to have to adapt. Like it used to be like, this was you hung up your sign, like for business, and that's like your website or whatever. And the way that people find you, the way that people, I mean, on some respects, it's not any different than what we've been doing with Google for the last 25 years, where it's like, you're making like keyword stuffing. Like you're not making this for a person, you're making this for a bot, right? Like, so a lot of the things that you do on your website, you're not doing because you're hoping that a person reads it. You're just trying to index for the Google spider kind of thing. And so now it's just a different set of bots that we're indexing for. We have less guidance than with Google, like OpenAI and Anthropic are not publishing webmaster tools, guides for how to show up in results or whatever. So that's frustrating. It's a bit of a black box for our customers who are just like, I don't really know what's going on. And Webflow is really well positioned in this, I will say, more so than others. Insofar as of our hundreds of thousands of customers or whatever who publish millions of websites, like we host all that, right? Webflow's like Cloudflare's third largest customer in the world, or whatever, something preposterous, right?
Something amazing, yeah.
Yeah, right. And so it's like we see the humans who visit those sites, and we see the bots who visit those sites, and we have a lot of data on what are the bots doing, what are they scraping, how often do they come, like so we can take that enormous data set and work backwards to reverse engineer what do you need to do to be successful with the bots that are coming to the site. So whether it's like our SEO recommendations or our AEO recommendations, we're drawing from like real data, like, because Anthropic is not publishing this anywhere, but Webflow can reverse engineer it in some meaningful ways, and we're seeing some really extraordinary results, and that's why like our whole AEO dashboard play is being really, really successful. There's a question that came through the chat. We'll get to that in a second, but the reason I'm saying this is because like Michael Wells, he tipped me off to this, and I did this. Where this sort of ties back to a lot of things, like, do we still need websites anymore? What capabilities are we unlocking? If you could make anything, what would you make? If you can vibe code it. So he mentioned casually that he wrote his own MCP for his like local grocery store. And Michael lives in New Zealand, right? I was just thinking like, oh, is that just something you could do? so there's a grocery store here in North Carolina, and there's just down the road from here or whatever. And I was like, could I write it? Like they have all of their products on their website. Like you
Yeah.
can order online now, right? So I vibe coded an MCP for this grocery store, and I have an app that just lives in Claude. It's not even deployed anywhere. It's just for me. And the great problem of families having to solve the dinner question, like what are you
Yeah.
going to make, who's going to acquire the ingredients, who's going to prepare it. I've been living alone since I was 16 years old. I left home, and after 30 years why is it still so hard to like acquire groceries every week or whatever? So I wrote this MCP, and then I wrote an app on top of the MCP that I created where I can take any arbitrary recipe on the internet. I can just feed the URL into my little bot. It will extract the ingredients and quantities. It will then disambiguate, like, if it's a quarter cup, it'll change it into this, and it'll
Yeah.
map it to SKUs. So it'll be like, oh, I need pasta. It'll find like the pasta, and I can even do a skill that's like, oh, of the pot, prefer this brand or prefer this 2% milk, not, skim milk or
Mhm.
whatever. And so like I have it all trained where just like I can have this library of recipes, and I can just click, okay, for Monday, we'll have this for dinner, Tuesday, this for dinner. I just say click, 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 click. It gets everything into my cart. And so all I have to do
Mm.
is visit the website, check out, and then the I can either go pick it up or they show up at my door. So it's like, I don't need to go to Lowe's. That's the name of the grocery store. I don't need to go to the grocery
Okay.
website anymore. Like
Huh.
this is your question. Do we need a website? Like all I need is a
Yeah.
database that I can connect to.
Yep. Yep.
Do you know, like, so like I'm not otherwise interfacing in any, which is a problem because now I'm not seeing their offers and their
Sure.
upsells and things. So, but for me as a person, like that is the best grocery shopping experience I've ever had because I had the
Yeah.
least, I didn't have to go anywhere, I have to talk to anybody. So in that respect, I don't need the website anymore. And for the,
Mm.
this, and I could never have made something like this without being able to do
Yeah.
it generatively. And so this is going to be a problem, but I think it's also an opportunity because part of the thing that we're seeing with these people who are leaving Webflow, like, oh, I'm vibe coding a Next.js app and I'm deploying to Vercel and whatever, that's fine. But
Yep.
like, you're just assembling something from parts, and
Yep.
developers and practitioners really like to do fiddly configurations. I love taking all these different things and assembling something out of it. But like, it's the same problem with WordPress, right? Like for all the
Yep.
things that WordPress does, it's a DIY kit you get in the mail. Like
Yeah.
I need like 50 plugins just to get like a baseline CMS functionality that should come out of the box.
Yep.
And so the idea that like somebody has to assemble it, it's not a complete integrated solution. And
Mm.
your customers, they don't care about fiddly configurations. They just want to open it
Yeah.
up. It works every time. This is like the iPad, right? I just turn this on. It just works.
Yep.
Nothing
Exactly.
so it's
Yep.
like that. That's the model of like I need to service my customers where they don't have to care about all these things. They just click a button, it just works. And so like the fiddly configurers, the builders,
Mhm.
the designers, the developers, I could spend all day just like optimizing my tooling,
Mm.
but
Yeah.
I'm not serving any business problem. So this is where I think we have an opportunity to embrace this new world here. But let me see. Sorry, this question came in from Lucretia.
Oh,
Uh,
I think she was just posting for us, like the
Posting
questions
the questions. Yeah, yeah.
that
Okay, got it.
we were
Thank
going to
you.
cover off on. So I think
Okay.
we're good. Um, well, and I think there's something that you'd mentioned there's two roles for a website, which is to traditionally what I would say, capture email, capture credit card. I would argue that there is a third now, which is, and this is something that we're actively pitching. Uh, it is a brand management platform. And so it's like how to be able to manage and influence what people are sort of looking and searching for, regardless of where they buy, and really moving into more of a multi-channel, or what has always been called omni-channel or whatever, where the corporate site becomes that source of truth. And so while these things get reused in 1,000 other different places, that there is one place in which this can be managed, as well as the toll gates for what that looks like. And to be able to add one more thing to your comment here on like, oh, I just did this within the so your grocery store or whatever. Cloudflare just launched the ability to turn on and off like what agents can be able to visit your site, or charge those agents for the privilege for them to be able to come. I would imagine that Webflow would potentially have that same capability, and then obviously be able to do that in a way where you don't have to go into Cloudflare, which is like super intimidating, and like that a marketer could say like, hey, I'm happy to open up these types of pages for training, right? I want all of these to be able to be populated out there. And then these pages should not be accessed for training. This is going to be the data that someone has to actually go in and be like, oh, you've reached the paywall. So now you actually have to pay us or give us your email or contact us or be able to do something to be able to get, so that there are those two lanes of like an agent lane as well as like a human lane.
I think that's excellent. I wonder, I hadn't considered that. I think what
I have all
I'm,
sorts of
I,
product ideas, as you know. So
yeah. Well, I'm wondering about this ability to like turn things on or off. Like, I think there's a lot of value for us, the website builders. I wonder, it's like, well, if I say that Claude or OpenAI or whatever can't scrape these pages, then it's like, well, they're going to scrape somebody else that is not gatekeeping them, and those answers are going to show up and not mine. And so there's going to be a détente here in terms of like what people want to do. But I like the idea of the home website as the, like, if you think that like you're working in a session with Claude and like you've got a skill or like a context, right? Where it's like the bot knows these like, here's the
yep,
background you need to know before you answer any questions or whatever.
yep,
So like your own corporate website becomes the context, becomes
yep,
like the skill file, that like
yep.
anything that interfaces needs to consult this first and then manage that. And that's a really compelling idea. And I wonder how to like commercialize that, or how to go to market with something like that,
So
or what
there was an
value that would have. Yeah.
yeah, there was an interview by the CEO of, I believe it was People, and they manage a ton of different publications. And I think this also gets into where offsite authority becomes really important, brand becomes really important. And they actually brokered this deal initially with Cloudflare, where they could go in and block so that they could have, to your question around like what is behind the paywall and what is public. And so what is public and what was getting crawled was the article summation, all this other type of stuff. And so like, yeah, if you're searching for and you'd be like, oh, the article shows up. And then if you want to be able to read the rest of it, then you actually have to have some type of transaction.
Mm,
And that's how they were able to save their news organization,
mm,
and then really be able to protect that business model. Now, to your question, like what happens? Does just anyone be able to do anything, which is fine. And I think there's no shortage of people, and we can get into as a separate conversation, the idea of, corporate media and like, homegrown media and all these types of things. But at the end of the day, brand matters. Brand is just the way that people come to understand you at scale. And the second part of this is then how does your business operate? And then what are the things that strategically, because strategy is not about what we say yes to, it is about what we say no to. So it's like, where do you as a business start to draw that line and put your bets? So anyway, we will see how that nets out.
I will say, I know we're coming to time here.
Yeah.
I'm just looking at these questions, scanning, make sure that we didn't mislead anybody. I don't think we covered really. We sort of indirectly covered the questions that enterprise teams ask. What I see across evaluations, how agency work translates here. We've covered some of these, like maybe not directly, but what I will say here at the end is, I think what people are lamenting about Webflow, partly like you made this comment somewhere, I forget where it was, that it's just like Webflow just was in the right place at the right time. It was sort of just like, it was the reason to meet other people. It was
Uh-huh.
like, I forget exactly the language you used, but it was something like, we're just a bunch of like web builders, and this became like a central area for us all to connect with each other and to like share what we're working on, things like, and it could have been something else, might still
Sure.
be something else or whatever. And that spoke to me a lot, because you did say that it's like the people that really matter. And this is of course a great secret of enterprise sales, is that there's no such thing as enterprise
Mm,
sales, because you don't sell the companies, you sell the people.
mm.
So doesn't matter how big the company is, you're still just selling to Susie in HR, or Mohammed in IT or whatever. It's a people to people kind of thing. But which is why like I joke about like human first, not AI first, is because it's like,
Yep.
the people all the thing. But what I see is like Lando Norris, the website of the Formula One driver, which won like website of the year. It's unbelievably fantastic. Kudos to off brand team.
Yep.
It's amazing. If that website turns off tomorrow, what really happens to Lando? not much. You know, I mean,
Sure. Yeah.
like he's still gonna be winning races and still gonna be getting his sponsorship. You know, so it's like that sort of still counts as like a restaurant brochure site,
Yep.
as amazing as it is, and as like as
Yep.
groundbreaking and as compelling and engaging. And so part of the thing is that it's just like the fun of the web, the building for the sake of building, the learning for the sake of learning, the sharing for the sake of sharing. None of this is commercial.
Yep.
You can maybe make a living doing it or something, but like the sad part is that like like waking up on a Saturday morning and like just making something cool, um, that may or may not pay the bills. And so
Yep.
that's the thing where it's like this shift where it's like, yes, we want to, uh, you know, highlight how people are doing really interesting, novel, creative, interesting things on the web without any expectation of making money. But if you need a company to pay you, it has to have value to the company.
Yep.
And the things that have value to companies are things that make them money.
Mm.
And so there's like a crassness to this, you know, like in terms of like it's just money, 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 money,
Yep.
which is not what Webflow has always been about, the people, these kinds of things. But like it is the world we live in, it's the water we swim in. So it's like sort of figuring out like how do we in this new AI world, in this agentic world, in this Webflow legacy community of like cool people making cool things, how do we preserve that but still make a living because we're creating things of value to companies, and the things that companies value, the things that make them money. And so it's sort of like a little bit of serving two masters kind of thing. And I think that sort of like, because like again, like a lot of the enterprise sites that get launched, like that your team makes or other,
Yep.
and you're like, they're fine. they're
Yeah.
not they're not going to win any design awards. They're not going to push any bound. I mean, maybe a little bit here. All the really fun stuff is the non-commercial stuff
Yep.
or whatever. So that's where it's like they're not that thrilling. A lot of cases they need to be sort of little kind of boring and predictable if you know you don't want to. Anyway, so there. I think that's part of the thing is that the money is over here,
Yep.
the fun is over here. So let's try and split
Yep.
that difference and see if we can all be doing our best work. You know.
Well, I think that's probably a really good transition to the next conversation that I'd love to have with you and Julian, which gets into this idea, one, which we can go and have a debate on like how building and be able to have some back and forth there. But I think something that you both really agree with is this notion of communities beyond platforms, right? Which I think is what you were talking about. And that for a long time, it was like the community was Webflow, right? And now I think the great opportunity is because of how the scope of the web has shifted, is that Webflow can join a conversation within a community. And it doesn't have to necessarily have the burden of carrying that community. And the community can have the opportunity to help itself grow in a way which is productive. It is about, again, more of like that striking the balance between fun and, professional development, and then be able to go from there. So I think it's a great next place for us to dig into. And I'd probably get sometime in August, I'll get some emails going and we can go from there.
I love it. I hope this met the expectations of the
Oh,
folks.
this is amazing. It's always awesome. I mean, I think you answered everything that I've been thinking about, and I'll be getting clips together. I'll share those with you, and we'll get some articles and all sorts of stuff. So I'm just grateful for you to take the time today on a Friday, and good to be able to catch up with you. And we didn't even get to talk about tiny houses, but we can do that at another time.
Yeah, well, you sort of referenced at the beginning like my actual day job, briefly, for which Webflow is like my side hustle or whatever.
Side hustle. I know.
You can come back to that. Yeah, but yeah, I run a farm in an intentional community in rural North Carolina. So that's something that we can touch on next time. But thank you so much for the opportunity. Enjoy your time in Maine. Do lots of sailing, and I'll see you next time.
Awesome. Well, here, I'm going to stop the recording and then I'll just wrap up here. So thanks, everyone.